Hello and welcome to NewsClick. The banking sector in India has been in the news a lot recently, and for all the wrong reasons. The latest controversies include a major scandal in the ICICI bank and a proposal for a merger of banks which has been fiercely opposed by employees. To talk more about this, we have with us Mr. Thomas Franco, the former General Secretary of the All India Bank Officers Confederation, who also follows the banking sector very closely. Hello, Mr. Franco. Thank you for joining us. So first of all, let's take a larger look at the picture here. So recently, the acting Finance Minister Piyush Goyal, during the interim budget speech, declared that the government had succeeded considerably in the banking sector, talking about the Jan Dhan scheme, for example, and also talking about the massive crackdown on black money and non-performing assets. So what is your take on this evaluation by Piyush Goyal?
First of all, the government should not have presented a full budget.
Right.
They don't have a mandate for that. And the budget appears to be just an election manifesto,
Right.
where they are trying to list out what they have done.
Exactly.
But if we have to look back on what they promised earlier. They did say that they will bring back all the black money which is stashed away in the foreign countries. And 15 lakh will be given to each person. Then they said that they will bring an end to non-performing assets. They said that the banking sector will be strengthened. But now presently what he has stated in the budget speech, he says that from 2008 to 2014, there was tremendous growth in advances, and something called phone banking was there, which the Prime Minister has also talked about. Meaning that somebody from Finance Ministry or from the ruling party could just phone up somebody and they could get the loan. Banks will not be able to lend unless certain procedures are followed. For example, even under this new Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, when he went to Australia, he was accompanied by the SBI chairman that time, Mrs. Arundhati Bhattacharya, who signed an MOU in Australia agreeing to give loans to Adani's project in Australia. But subsequently, the board did not pass that loan.
Right.
They had to undergo all those procedures. That is what happens in all the loans. Now here, the growth in advances was huge because banks were having plenty of money.
Right.
The FDI increased, foreign institutional investors were also investing money here. So there was surplus money available in the market. That was coming to the banks. Banks cannot keep the money and sit quiet. They had to lend. Secondly, the government wanted to reduce the fiscal deficit. So they stopped expenditure in major areas on infrastructure. Instead, they asked the banks to lend to those sectors like roads,
Right.
other infrastructure, telecom, steel, power. These were supposed to be financed by the government in its budget. If not, long-term financial institutions like IDBI, they should have been financing it. But banks were asked to lend under a new model called the public-private partnership, where actually there is nothing contributed from the private person. Yes. It is only the public money which is taken as loan. They are supposed to give a contribution of say 10%. They don't give that, they just inflate the figures. And now this government has also come with a new idea called the viability gap fund. In a long-term project, if there is going to be delay in getting profit and there will be deficit for the corporate person who is the company which is investing, the government is providing a viability gap fund during the beginning of the project itself. Right. So you are simply transferring money to a corporate. Now, in this case, the lending increased because of many reasons. Money was available. infrastructure development had to take place, and banks were willing to lend, and they did give the loan. Definitely the loans increase. Now, you are calling everything as a bad loan and fee and all, that it was reckless lending, which is not correct. See, Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance has done an analysis and submitted a report in February 2016 itself, where they have analyzed what were the reasons. The economic slowdown, lending more to the corporates in the infrastructure sector, where the returns were not coming quickly. There were clearances, like environment clearance was not given in time. And Chinese import of steel, which became so competitive that steel industry got badly affected. The power sector, again, they gave to many corporates who were not having that expertise in the power sector. The electricity boards were doing much better. So all this led to a decline in repayment, and NPAs accumulate. Now on that NPA, what is to be done? Again, Finance Standing Committee has given recommendations. They have said that you have to fix accountability on the chairmen of the bank, board members, including board members who are from the Reserve Bank of India, from the Finance Ministry. Have they done anything? Nothing has been done. They had also stated that you should once again revive development financial institution. That has not been done. Now in countries like China and some other countries where this kind of, everywhere there is NPA. In fact, Russia has one of the highest NPA ratio.
Right.
There the government looks at what happens. If there is a willful default, they take strict action. Like for example in China, if you are a willful defaulter, you cannot buy a flight ticket. But here you can get a safe passport and fly away to another country. So the non-performing asset, what has to be done has not been done. Now in the budget he says that we have increased the recovery, we brought the insolvency and bankruptcy code. That is only helping the corporates. He has stated that we have recovered 3 lakh crores. But he has failed to, or purposely he has avoided to say how much is written off. The same period 4 lakh crores have been written off.
Right.
And this government is not willing to even disclose who are the people to whom this loan has been written off. So all these claims he makes on the demonetization also. RBI report says that 99.3% of the money has come back. He says number of tax payers have increased, the tax returns. Most of the tax returns are nil returns. And as because more number of tax payers have increased, it is not because of this effort of demonetization.
Right.
Every year there has been a steady growth. If we look at the last 5 years or 10 years, there has been a steady growth in number of income tax payers.
Right.
For that you didn't have to kill 100 people.
Right.
More than 100 people died during the demonetization. Everybody came to the streets. And did any corporate owners or very rich people get affected? None of them got affected.
True.
They are all safe. It is the poor people who got affected. The small, medium and micro enterprises badly affected. Farmers got badly affected because that was the harvest season. They could not sell their products. So all this claim what he has made is just not worthy.
Exactly.
It is just a false claim they are making to show that no, we kept up that promise. But none of these promises have been kept because they are treading a wrong path. They have not changed from the old economic policies. That was what was expected.
Right.
They are still following the dictates of IMF and the World Bank and following the same policy,
Right.
which is oriented towards the rich. That's why now the reports have come that the wealth accumulation to a small percentage is increasing.
Right.
1% of them, they are becoming richer and richer. And 60% of the people, they own only a pittance.
Right.
They are suffering.
Right.
So that way in the banking sector as well as in the overall economy, if we see, his claims are not at all correct.
So moving on to a key plank of the government in the banking sector, the merger of banks. So on February 4th, thousands of bank officers from across the country protested in Delhi against the merger of Vijaya Bank, Dena Bank and the Bank of Baroda. And earlier also we saw the same thing with the SBI and its associate banks. So could you talk a bit more about what exactly is the logic behind these mergers and what is its impact?
See, merger is a step towards privatization.
Right.
They had been trying in many different ways. In 2015, January itself, they brought out a document called Gyan Sangam, a way forward,
Right.
where they have clearly spelled out that we create a bank investment board and then change the shareholding of government to that board, BBB, Banks Board Bureau, and then slowly privatize.
Right.
Now there has been very strong opposition from the public, from the trade unions. So they could not implement that. So as a way out, they tried to bring in a bill called the Financial Resolutions and Deposit Insurance Bill. Thanks to NewsClick, the message spread to the people. People started withdrawing money because they were bringing in a bill where they were giving an absolute authority to an organization called the Resolution Authority, which could merge banks, close down banks, and take away the depositors' money
Right.
to appropriate towards the losses of the banks. So people got alert. They started withdrawing the money. Then the Prime Minister had to tell openly that we are not going to take away, it is some bank union leaders who are spreading a long message. We appeared before the Joint Parliamentary Committee and finally today that bill is shelved because of the opposition from the people. Now, what they wanted, they could not achieve, so they are finding another way out. Merger. Now, in the merger, associate banks and the Bharatiya Mahila Bank were merged with State Bank of India. The bank is not doing well. Though this quarter they have shown some profit. If we analyze, the profit is more because of some appropriation of investment portfolio.
Right.
But what has happened is 5,000 people were given VRS. Further recruitment has been reduced. The NPA has tremendously increased
Okay.
and people are moving away from the big bank. And to augment the losses, they have increased the service charges, which has received very strong criticism.
Right.
Now, that experience clearly shows that merger is not a successful idea. Now, State Bank is still considering to further reduce the number of branches. Already 1,600 outfits have been reduced.
Okay.
Now, I understand that there is an exercise going on to further reduce the number of branches. In a country where the banking penetration is not adequate, when we compare with even Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, why should we keep reducing the number of branches?
Right.
There is much scope for improving the number of banks, number of branches. In fact, just one way of making these banks profitable will be just reorient the credit. That was the purpose for which nationalization took place. By reorienting the credit to the larger masses of the country, to the farmers, small industries, shopkeepers, traders, women, small micro entrepreneurs. If you increase the lending to them, they are honestly paying back.
Right.
It is not the them they are defaulting, it is the corporates who are defaulting. So if they start getting credit, the economy will also grow, repayment will also come, and all this money written off also can be wiped off, and banks can once again become robust.
Right.
That effort is not being taken. Instead, in this merger, what they are trying, Dena Bank, Bank of Baroda and Vijaya Bank. Vijaya Bank is a profit-making bank. Now they want it to be taken over by Bank of Baroda. Once they said merger, then amalgamation. Now already circulars have been issued that it will be Bank of Baroda's HR policies which will be followed.
Okay.
So Bank of Baroda is going to be the larger player, and two other banks are going to be wiped out. Now if you look at Dena Bank has larger presence in Gujarat. Their NPA is more in Gujarat. That is going to be written off now. The moment you talk about merger, everything comes to a standstill. Nobody takes decision.
Right.
Nobody follows up the accounts. So ultimately, the further losses are going to take place. Even Vijaya Bank, which is making a profit, is likely to turn red. Bank of Baroda is also not doing very great. Bank of Baroda also has a lot of branches in Gujarat.
Right.
So I see that there is a plan to help the corporates, the rich people in Gujarat, for which also this merger is being used.
Right.
Finally, they are going to say that, see, we tried all our best. It's not working. So the only way to hand it over to the private sector.
Right.
Call a mad dog and call a dog mad and then shoot it.
Right.
That exactly is the purpose towards which they are moving. This government has been all along helping the corporates only. We are seeing it very clearly in the loans being written off by the NCLT in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy
Right.
Court. Alok, one example alone I will share with you. Alok Industries has been sold with a haircut, so-called haircut of 82% to Mukesh Ambani. State Bank of India chairman files an affidavit in the Supreme Court saying that we are willing to write off 35,000 crores because Mr. Arun Jaitley, the finance minister, called us and told us that in the Gujarat, the power sector is not doing well. Power sector is not doing well anywhere.
Right.
But Gujarat, they are not doing well. So we should help them. So who are these people, the poorest in the country they are trying to help? He is listing out Mukesh Ambani, Gautam Adani, the Tatas. So what is this plan this government has is very clear.
Right.
So the merger is not at all going to help the banking system. It is further going to bring down damages to the public sector bank, and ultimately privatization is the goal.
So moving on to the privatization bit, the last couple of days have seen more reports coming out on the ICICI scandal. The CBI has filed a first information report, and there have been far more reports in the media also about this. So what do you think the issue over Chanda Kochar actually demonstrates about the current regulatory framework in the country and this whole claim that private sector banks are far more efficient and the public sector is the inefficient one, the claims that are being made by the government?
Yes. It's a very glaring example now which has come out. We have seen even during demonetization, it was these private banks who were given more money by the Reserve Bank of India, and they were exchanging money to the rich people without following the norms. There have been some cases also against Axis Bank, ICICI Bank on this issue. The private banks, they are guarded by themselves. There is no mechanism for us to come to know what is happening within, though there is a balance sheet which is supposed to be very transparent and all. The type of loans they give, one way they were showing that they are more efficient is that they were not lending much to the corporates, especially to the infrastructure where the long-term repayment is there. They were concentrating more on retail advances, where you get the money back quickly. So apparently it was being shown that they are doing well. But they were always hiding non-performing assets. They were always favoring certain corporates. This is Chanda Kochar. For quite some time, in every foreign trip of the Prime Minister of the country, she was accompanied.
Right.
What is her role in going there to a foreign country? Have collaborations with some foreign companies. Give them loans. Now in this particular case in ICICI, Videocon case, her husband is involved, the board is involved. It has taken so long for the
Right.
government to wake up, CBI to wake up. They should have done that years before. Then they would have got more documents. Now everybody knew that something is going on. So Chanda Kuchar would have become very alert,
Right.
husband would have become very alert, Videocon would have become very alert. So to get evidences will be very difficult.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, the finance minister who is in a sabbatical, sitting in an hospital in US, he is tweeting.
Adventurism, investigative
Yeah,
adventurism.
he talks about investigative adventurism. What is this? For a person who has looted money from a bank, he is supporting, and it is a directive.
Right.
Mallikarjuna Kharge has stated yesterday that whatever Arun Jaitley says, it is accepted, but what I am saying as leader of the opposition, even in selection of a CBI director, it is not accepted. So a message by a finance minister in Twitter will have impact on the investigation agencies. How can you do that?
Right.
There are more skeletons which will come out if they really investigate. First, they should investigate which are the loans written off. All those should be done with a forensic audit. Then the real truth will come. It should not stop with only ICICI. Same thing should be applied to the other private banks,
Right.
to Axis Bank, HDFC Bank. Let there be an audit. If there is nothing wrong, you can say that there is nothing wrong. These private banks, some of them are doing reckless lending, even small banks like Catholic Syrian Bank. There is an MD who is going on giving all the loans in Mumbai. It's a Kerala based bank, but most of the advances are given only in Mumbai. One hand, he brings all his old cronies who are retired people and puts them in the executive cadre, but he has reduced the age of retirement from 60 to 58, which he does not have an authority, because it's a bipartite mechanism in which we have signed an agreement based on which the age is fixed. And he is trying to say that the staff are useless, they do not work. And now he is being coordinating with some of the other private banks also, especially in Kerala. So these private banks require a much stronger mechanism by Reserve Bank of India to monitor them. They are under certain audit which takes place. Section 35A provides for RBI to audit large advances. That's not enough. The private banks and non-banking financial companies should be very strictly audited by the Reserve Bank of India. For that, RBI should increase their number of employees, officers.
Right.
We are seeing what is happened in the case of ILFS. We have seen now Dewan Housing.
DSFL, right.
Everywhere skeletons are coming out because there is no stringent monitoring mechanism,
Right.
especially for the public sector.
The private sector.
Sorry, private sector. In the public sector, at least employees are there to question, boards are little more cautious, and they are under little more scrutiny. But private sector, everything is kept opaque, because of which they are doing a lot of wrongdoings, which requires a stringent mechanism to monitor.
Okay. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsClick.